Daniil Dubov won the second set in his quarterfinal matchup against Magnus Carlsen, so that meant they went into a tiebreak. By the way, if you haven't seen those games in the second set, then do check out the video. You'll find the link up there. Just click on the I button there. So, Blitz playoffs. 2 games. Carlsen with the white pieces. So, well, that second set was an absolute shocker for Carlsen. He played really poorly. So, first Blitz game, how would he cope? Well, it's exactly the same as one of the games from that second set, this Gioco Piano, where Dubov has played this unusual pawn move to h6. He wants to play g5 if white castles. And Carlsen repeats exactly the moves from that earlier game they'd had. It's all exactly the same, except d6 was played previously in their game. This time Dubov strikes out straight away with d5, which is reasonable. The only thing is that white may be able to get a bit of pressure here. I think rook e1 is a good move. Bishop d2 is also reasonable, just protecting this. Still, Carlsen played h3. I mean, that is really timid. And Dubov snapped this pawn off, and actually it's just a good move. Attacks the queen, and here's the point. After queen e1, played by Carlsen, knight d4. I mean, this is awful for white already. Queen takes knight, impossible because of knight e2 check, a knight fork. Queen takes e5, also not very good because of, well, for example, rook e8 is actually a very strong move, pushing the queen around. Well, you could just take the knight here, but that leaves black a pawn up. Black must be, well, at least, yeah, better to some degree anyway. So instead, Carlsen took on e5. This is really risky. Watch these knights. Check. And now king h2 is the best move, although still not great, but king h1 played. And this is another shocking move from Carlsen because he allows another tactic. Bishop takes pawn. I mean, black's minor pieces are just having a great time here. I mean, the queen is going to join the attack very soon. Point is this, after pawn takes bishop, which happened, knight takes bishop. Now, the move we would like to play is pawn takes knight here. But after this, queen d5 check. That's why the king shouldn't be on this square. Check. And then you take the knight on the next turn with a winning advantage. Black has recovered all the material. So let's go back here. So after knight takes, that's the last move, Carlsen took the knight on e2. Now he's improvising. Queen d5 check. Nice centralization. And here Dubov just took the rook in the corner, which should be good for black, but actually it starts to get tricky. In this position, he had a really simple move. Now, I'm not sure why he didn't play this. This just keeps things simple. The knight attacks the queen. The queen has to move. Queen takes knight check. Here we go. It's another knight fork. And in this position, okay, it's not checkmate. It's not a winning material advantage, but black is a clear pawn up with no real complications. Now, maybe just Dubov thought, can I actually finish that one off against the world champion? Don't know. So he played more ambitiously. He took the rook in the corner. But it's actually not entirely clear because suddenly Carlsen gets some attack on the g file. f6, queen g4. In fact, well, a few moves ago, Dubov could have defended better with f6 earlier, but now it's not so clear again. Mate threatened on g7, g5. King is opening up, queen f5. And here, well, I mean, this game is just a catalogue of errors. Here black should force a draw, and you can do that by playing rook takes knight, and white has a perpetual here, but nothing better. King g8, queen g6, etc. Draw. But Dubov played instead rook e7, an extraordinary blunder, and once again we have a knight fork. This seems to be the theme of this game. Knight g6. It's incredible. I mean, both players, I think, must have been incredibly tired. And if queen takes queen, knight takes, and the knight bounces round to take the queen, and white is winning. Extraordinary. So after knight g6, queen's threatened, these rooks are threatened, and the game has turned. Queen d6 check. Rook g3. This knight is still very annoying. Knight c2. This knight runs back into the game, or tries to. Knight takes. Here, this is, I think it's already winning for white, actually. Comparatively best is to take this, but bishop f6 should be winning for white. But instead, knight d4. And this was taken. And knight e6. This knight causing all kinds of grief, attacking the queen and getting ready for an attack. Queen e5, and now the queen just steps in. And queen f8, that was actually the final move of the game. If king h7, queen takes rook check. Extraordinary game. Carlsen, well, to say was completely lost is perhaps pushing it too far. But that endgame was clearly worse, and actually even after Dubov took that exchange, well, it's tricky for a blitz game to control that one actually, but it should be winning for black. But yeah, like I said, the endgame, this endgame really was very clear. And for some inexplicable reason, Dubov avoided that. So one game up. So Carlsen just needed to draw the next blitz game and he would win the match. But look what happened. Well, again, there were loads of blunders in this game. Carlsen should have been winning, but instead found himself in an end game with opposite colour bishops. Dubov with the white pieces and with two extra pawns. Now, it seems as though black has a blockade here. You can see that bishop controls these squares, preventing white's king from invading to assist the pawn. The king securely blockades the e-pawn. How does white win? Well, Dubov found a really beautiful idea. Remember, he's in a must-win situation. So first of all, he marched his king all the way over to the h-pawn. There we go. So if he takes that one, then that one's going to fly. So that has to be defended by Carlsen. Okay, how do we make progress? Still not so simple. Well, in fact, there is a simple win for white. Beautiful move. Bishop c4, and that is Zugzwang. Zugzwang means that basically it gives your opponent the move. Whatever move your opponent makes, it compromises his position. So why is this position Zugzwang? Well, that bishop has to stay covering the b8 square, otherwise the white pawn will queen. It also has to protect the h-pawn. So the bishop can't move. That means the king must move. So the king has to go backwards because it must keep tabs on the e-pawn. So white's king goes forward. Once again, that bishop has to remain where it is. Black's king would also like to remain where it is, but it has to step away, which allows white's king in. And now it's lost. Let's get a queen, little deflection. And once that's taken, e7, and the pawn will roll home. Lovely idea. Remember, this was a blitz game. All played at great speed. That's, B8 check. That's move 101. That's where Carlsen resigned. So, one game all, and yes, after the 2 blitz games, they went into an Armageddon game. Carlsen chose the white pieces. That means he was in a must-win situation. And, well, like many Armageddon games, it was pretty chaotic. But I wouldn't say there were enormous blunders. So it's this bishop b5. I do like this opening for white. I think it's great fun to play. White has just very easy development. And now b3, of course, Carlsen is hoping that black will take here, which will isolate those pawns. And this is already a really pleasant position for Carlsen. The queen comes to a nice square. These bishops aren't really doing very much at all. Bishop a3, good move. You can see white's pieces really active. Very easy for white to play. Not so easy for black. Knight e4. And that is a very unfortunate move for black, because not only is that pawn threatened, but knight f6 as well. And d5 looks horrific. Yet another knight fork, forcing an exchange. And those dark squares are so weak. So Carlsen is a pawn up, plus positionally he dominates. And if Dubov isn't careful, then it's going to be mate on this long diagonal. Incredibly, Dubov managed to put up a defence here. And in fact, well, Carlsen didn't play very precisely. And around about here, you can see that if Dubov manages to get in rook e8 and exchange rooks, things aren't that bad. Black might be able to hold with the opposite colour bishops. It still should be good for white. Queen b6 is a nice move, just probing away there. But instead, this happened, and Carlsen walked into an endgame, still a pawn up. Well, if the rooks are exchanged, then that's definitely a draw. So Carlsen had to remove his rook from the open file. Pretty dreadful. If rook e2, then it will be forced away, actually. But white is just too passive now. And around about this stage, you can see Dubov exchanging pawns and now activating his rook. It must be a draw, basically. But here is where things went wrong for Dubov, because watch what's happening with his rook. Something pretty awful is happening. That rook is now trapped. Hasn't really got a good way out. And now this should just be winning for Carlsen. You can see that rook hasn't got anywhere to go to here. So Carlsen activated his rook. But somehow Dubov kind of crawled out. But by this stage, actually, Carlsen's initiative is too great. And Dubov tried hard, but this was too much. And I'm going through this very quickly. There's no, I don't think it's fitting, really, to go into too much detail in an Armageddon game. I think we can just say that Carlsen did enough to win this game. He should have finished it off really earlier when he won that pawn. But, well, in this position, Dubov, I think he actually lost on time here, because the last 20 moves, Carlsen just moved up a gear and the moves just started flowing. He really was in his element, actually. Obviously plays these endgames extremely well. So there we go. Magnus Carlsen won the playoff and made it through to the next round, into the semi-final. But he was, well, as is his wont, pretty disgusted with his performance. He basically said, well, if the preliminaries were one step forward, then this was 2 steps back. And he called his performance disgusting. Well, I don't know about disgusting. You know, he's a very harsh critic. He's his harshest critic, actually. He did enough to win this, but there were some extraordinary blunders that I wouldn't expect from Carlsen and from Dubov as well. But anyway, let's see what happens later in the tournament. Will Carlsen manage to get some of his form back? Let's see. Thanks for watching.